a worthwhile learning experience. And if you do, we would have achieved our purpose. And before I turn over the floor to our chair, Ramon Fernandez, on behalf of all of Sharephil, we want to thank you, Mon, and your committee for another successful summit and a job well done. Thank you very much.
To give us an overview of the summit, please welcome Summit Chair and Sharephil Treasurer and Trustee, Mr. Mon Fernandez, who is also President and CEO of Manila Water Services, and of course, President of the Management Association of the Philippines.
Magandang hapon po. Sharephil Chair, Mrs. Evelyn Singson, our President Francis Lim, distinguished speakers, fellow Sharephil members, student participants, friends from media, guests, ladies and gentlemen, magandang hapon. When Sharephil was formed 2011, our founder's intent was to protect the investor through education and shareholder activism. We recognized that such engagement was necessary because an enlightened investing public is key in developing the capital markets. Sharephil remains steadfast and consistent in promoting this advocacy, as more vigilance is needed given the current state of the capital markets. Our main vehicle that Sharephil utilizes in pushing this advocacy to a wider audience is the holding of this annual summit. Today's event would be our fifth, as already seen in the screen, as mentioned also by our chair. And as in previous ones, I'm happy to note that we have exceeded both our attendance targets as well as our fundraising for our educational programs. Since we began holding our annual summits in 2014, we have managed to feature illustrious lineup of speakers. These include our PLDT and MPIC Group Chairman Manuel P. Pangilinan, former Finance Secretary Cesar Purisima, successful businesswoman Tessie C. Coson, and the father and son tandem of Mr. Oscar and Federico Lopez. Last year, we had brothers Jaime Augusto and Fernando Sobel de Ayala sharing their take on creating and sustaining value through principled corporate stewardship. Today, we are honored to have our newest batch of distinguished speakers, three creative and daring entrepreneurs who will talk about how they transitioned from successfully running family businesses to managing public corporations, and answer the question what motivated them to make the shift and what changes they have instituted in their respective corporations since then. We welcome my dear friend Mr. Joshua of SM Investments Corporation, Ms. Lorraine Bevel of Wilcon Depot, and Mr. Alvin Lau of DNL Industries. They will be elaborating on this year's summit theme, The Journey from Private Enterprise to a Public Company, Lessons, Challenges, Opportunities. Also adding color to the discussions will be our current crop of reactor panelists, Mr. Jose Franco Soberano of Cebu Landmasters, and Mr. Delphine Wenceslao of Asiana Holdings, and of course, Mr. Ed Francisco of Pido Capital and Sharephil. With this exciting lineup of speakers and topics, I expect an afternoon of stimulating, engaging, and inspiring discussions. Ultimately, by holding this annual summit, Sharephil is able to spread its advocacy and raise the necessary funds to sustain our education, research, shareholder relations, and representation programs. I would therefore like to thank you all for your participation. I also wish to extend Sharephil's deepest gratitude to our event sponsors. Diamond sponsors San Miguel Corporation, Platinum sponsors BDO Unibank, First Gen Corporation, Metro Pacific Investments Corporation, and SM Investments Corporation. Our gold sponsors, Ayala Corporation, BPI, Cebu Land Masters, LT Group Incorporated, Meralco, and Udena Corporation. Our silver sponsors, Del Monte and Price Corporation. Thanks also to our various bronze sponsors and donors. Special mention to our official media partners, Philippine Star, ANC, Philippine Daily Inquirer, Business World, BizNews Asia, One News Channel, and TV5. Allow me to also acknowledge the Sharephil Summit Committee members, our Chair, Evelyn Singson, our hard-working President, Francis Lim, very influential and very hardworking, and Madam Cora Bernaldo, Tammy Lipana, Jimmy Ismael, and Boots Garcia. Lastly, I'd like to express my gratitude to our hardworking Summit Secretariat, Ada Mabayad, Lynn Angeles, Abby Benaventura, and of course, to our entire Sharephil board for their full support. So to all our participants, maraming salamat po for supporting Sharephil's advocacy of promoting faith to the investor. Magandang hapon po ulit.
Thank you, Mon. Thank you for naming some of the major sponsors, but I'd like to also recognize and acknowledge the support of the other sponsors. If you don't mind, I have a selfish reason for doing that. Our bronze sponsors, DNL Industries, Double Dragon, Isla Lipana Company, Price Waterhouse, Mega World, Metropolitan Bank and Trust Company. That's the reason why I had to call the other sponsors. I'm the director of Metro Bank. SGV and Company, Security Bank, Union Bank of the Philippines, and Wilcon Depot. We also have donors, CIBI Foundation, Call Financial Group, Cebu Pacific, Lusitani Philippines. That's the other reason why I wanted to enumerate these names. Insular Life, Jan Visuals Enterprises, Land Bank, Manila Water, Ortigas and Company, Philippine Airlines, Reyes Takandong and Company, Robinson's Land, and Victoria's Milling. We'd like to also give our thanks to our media partners, ANC or the ABS-CBN News Channel, BizNews Asia, Business World, Philippine Daily Inquirer, Philippine Star, One News Channel, and TV5. The growing number of sponsors, corporate sponsors to the annual summit of Sharephil is a testimony and recognition of the impact of Sharephil on the capital markets development of this country and also the corporate governance reforms in our country. So thank you very much, sponsors. Shall we give them a round of applause? We're 2 minutes ahead of time, but we'll start anyway. We will start with the keynote speeches of some of our invited guests. And to save time, we will dispense with the lengthy introduction of our speakers, but allow me to say a few sentences about them. Our first keynote speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is Ms. Lorraine Bevel, Director, President, and CEO of Wilcon Depot, Inc., whose IPO was one of the most successful in 2017. As you know, Wilcon is the country's leader in home improvement and construction retail store. Lorraine?
gentlemen. Thank you so much, Sharephil, for inviting me, our company, to come and share some insights and experience from what happened to when we went public. It has been a little over a year since we went public on March 31st, 2017. It's quite fast, it's already 2018. It's quite a whirlwind. As things began to settle down, we realized that going public is quite similar to getting married. Putting our hearts, mind, and soul into it, we have to be mentally, financially, and even physically prepared for it. No amount of preparation could have made us ready for the change that was to come. The daily life for a company, I'm sure you know, is a constant cycle of challenges and gratification. But a public company's life is akin to living in a glass house, where all your travails and triumphs are under public scrutiny. So how did we, the only publicly listed pure home improvement and finishing construction materials retail chain, find ourselves here? My father, Mr. William T. Bevel, started the business from humble beginnings 41 years ago in 1977, along Quezon Avenue in Quezon City. It was a 60 square meter store in an area outside of the so-called hardware block, which until today is in the vicinity of Alonso, Soler, and nearby streets. From the beginning, he was already all about big ideas. He chose a business different from his father's, small grocery. He built his first store away from the traditional location and had to generate his own market from scratch. He modernized the finishing construction materials trade by innovating the depot concept in the country. He built a growth-oriented organization based on mutual trust, common belief in the value of hard work, generosity in imparting knowledge, and nurturing homegrown talents. That organization, which we all now know as Wilcon, has brought us here where we are today. It was a collective effort by all the members of the Wilcon family led by my father, William Bevel. It was a relatively gradual growth for Wilcon. By the end of 2016, Wilcon had 36 branches. But 36 branches in 39 years, when the country's growth rate had accelerated, still left a lot of room for Wilcon to grow. Our expansion prior to listing was funded mostly by internally generated funds and some domestic bank borrowings. We, my father particularly, meanwhile have been identifying and land banking potential sites for Wilcon stores in the future. Admittedly, prior to listing, Wilcon was in a comfortable position in our space. But many times in our family meetings, as my father increasingly passed on work to the three of us siblings, the proverbial adage on family businesses would crop up. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. The first generation creates the wealth. The second, hopefully we will grow it. And the third, will squander it. I've heard this quite often. As a family too, we wanted to preserve our father's legacy. We are proud of what Wilcon has achieved in this little space we operate in. And we acknowledge our responsibility to our employees, our partner suppliers, and our customers. We felt it is our obligation to sustain or even surpass the success that Wilcon has accomplished so far. And we want Wilcon to be the leader in our industry for generations to come. There is also the matter of the ever-present competition from all sides. Same format stores, with stores with overlapping categories with ours, other formats, DIY stores, modern, traditional trade, practically everywhere, mushrooming wherever we go. To maintain our position in the industry, we need to continually seize opportunities to increase our lead. We explored the different avenues we could take to bring Wilcon to the next level, and the idea of bringing the business public came to mind several times. We believed it was the best way to cement our father's and the Wilcon organization's legacy, which at the same time will give us the ready funds to accelerate our growth. Being a private, family-owned company for so long, and being quite successful tends to make an organization complacent. There is not enough impetus to improve because everything is seemingly working out great. until you wake up to a changed world and you scramble to catch up. So we thought, bringing the business public will force us to leave our comfort zone. But nobody wants to leave the comfort zone, but we did it anyway. Augment and formalize the organization, clean up, streamline, reconfigure our systems and processes to be poised for the expanded operations. When we were preparing for the listing, we decided to list only the retail part of the business to more efficiently focus the equity funds from the public on the most productive part of the business. We took out the retail operations from the now parent company, Wilcon Corporation, and transferred this to Wilcon Depot Inc. We reorganized the board of the parent company to include independent directors and formed the board of Wilcon Depot, initially with 2 independent directors and subsequently increased it to 4. So our board is actually majority independent directors. We solicited recommendations for independent director candidates from our advisors who have had experience in the network. We then chose the best in terms of qualifications, experience, and fit to complement our management team. This has also made us more mindful in the review and streamlining of our systems, processes, and controls, that these should pass muster with our independent directors and therefore our board. When we were pricing our stock, we as a family decided we wanted to give back to our employees, loyal customers, and partner suppliers by giving them the opportunity to share in the upside. After all, they were very instrumental in Wilcon's success as a business. In fact, we opted for an all-domestic offering, if any of you didn't know that, which meant a lot of retail investors would get the opportunity to participate. These retail investors would quite possibly be our existing and hopefully future potential customers. We wanted to build goodwill among our potential investors because they are the same market that we serve in our Wilcon stores. After we were listed, we started to open up to our untapped market, which at that time were the foreign institutional investors. Although we did not actively seek them out, we met with them, with all the buy and sell sides who expressed interest through one-on-one meetings, conference calls, sell-side sponsored conferences, and a non-deal roadshow. All these activities helped boost our share price by introducing the company to a much wider and more diverse and longer-term investor audience. These interactions were also venues where we learned various insights and perspectives about our industry from different areas of the world, actually. We believe that since listing, the demand for our stock from institutional investors would not have been as robust had the company not delivered on its promises. The best investor relations tool that propelled our share price to where it is now is a combination of financial performance, engagement and transparency with our current and potential shareholders, and excellent company brand marketing. Of course, in hindsight, it helped that our listing was timed perfectly. I was just talking about this with my IPO batchmate, Cebu Landmasters. Now that we have achieved a well-diversified mix of investors, we plan to continue to engage with them and be open to any interested investors. For our small investors, we have thus far conducted 2 stockholder meetings where we interacted with our retail investors. We also believe, though, that the best way we can reward our retail investors is to consistently deliver earnings growth that would hopefully translate into a fair share price and continuous dividend payouts. To ensure continued earnings growth, we remain bullish about our expansion program. In fact, our founder announced in our last stockholders meeting that we may be able to finish our 29-store expansion program ahead of schedule, barring any major untoward event beyond our control. Wilcon has always survived and grown despite the ups and downs of the construction industry and the economy as a whole. The home improvement and finishing construction supplies retail industry has a stable renovation and maintenance market that sustains it in times of construction or property development downturns. We just have to stay on our toes and keep our business sense honed to be able to continue to accurately read our market and stay ahead of the game. In closing, let me express my appreciation for all the trust that our investors have placed in Wilcon. We want to harness this success in the equity market into operational advantage. In terms of marketing, being listed gave us added validation to our market as Wilcon's brand equity significantly increased. The demand of outside investors also drives us to strive for greater efficiency and to be more conscientious in our daily operations, because not only profit is at stake, but also the name and legacy of our founder. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lorraine. We'll have our chance to ask questions from Lorraine later, including the other speakers. I would now like to call on our second keynote speaker, Mr. Alvin Lau, who is the President and CEO of DNL Industries. DNL is a Filipino company engaged in product customization and specialization for the food, plastics, and aerosol industries. It has the largest market share in each of these industries it serves, as well as long-standing customer relationship with the Philippines' leading consumer and chemical companies. Alvin?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much to Sharephil for inviting me to share the DNL story and how we became a simple family business and are now listed in the stock exchange. So, a little caveat, I'm not a CPA or a business major. I'm actually a geek. I double majored in IT and statistics, but I got my MBA. DNL is actually the third of our family's listings, and later on I'll talk a little bit about that. But my purpose this afternoon is really just to tell you our story of what we went through from being a family business and why an IPO made a lot of sense for us. And I hope you find value in it. So, a little bit about our company. It's a little harder to understand what we do in DNL because we don't make anything that consumers buy or use directly. We are a B2B company. Our customers are primarily all businesses as well. So the major divisions we have 4 categories. Number 1, our biggest category is food. We make a lot of ingredients used in food. So everything from your fast food chains to what you buy in the supermarket and so on. A lot of the ingredients used in these products are made by us. Second division, there was a listed company before called Chemrest Technologies. So for those of you who have invested in the stock market before, Chemrest was known as a manufacturer of biodiesel. We also make other chemicals used, raw materials again, for products like paints and plastic containers and so forth. Our third division is a plastics ingredients manufacturing company. So again, we don't make anything made from plastic, but we make a lot of raw materials which manufacturers then use. So we are a provider of raw materials. And finally, we are a one-stop shop for aerosol manufacturing. So almost all of the aerosol products made in the Philippines, about 90%, if it's made in the Philippines, it's actually made by us for various companies, various customers, and various brands. So those are our 4 main segments. So we are a 55-year-old company. We started business in 1963. The reason why it's called DNL Industries is because the names of the 2 founders, there are 2 brothers, Dean and Leon Lau. So actually, the story behind this is my father is Leon, and together with his eldest brother Dean and his third brother Alex, the three of them are chemical engineers. So when they were looking at starting a business, they thought of all these fancy names, you know, Philippine Chemical Company and so on, but the SEC rejected them all because they were all taken. So they just thought, why don't we just use our initials? So that's why it's called D&L. So actually, there are 5 brothers in that generation. So my father and 4 uncles, they were the start of how our company started in 1963. And then over time, as you can see, we added more businesses, more companies. So the first time we went public was in the year 2000. So what happened was we started with a company called Corocode. Most of you would probably not remember this because Corocode was a really small company. I think at the peak, its market cap reached maybe something like $4 million. It was really small. And then in 2006, that's when we listed Chemres, and then 2012 was the IPO of D&L. So earlier, Lorraine talked about the family business and what it's like to be in a family business. So very important for us is to look at what defines a family business. What makes family businesses different from your other businesses? So for us, a lot of it boils down to the values that are created in a family business. So the owners who start the business, their values really cascade down towards the rest of the company. And you have other things that you really see are strengths in a family business. Things like loyalty, pride, cohesiveness, which gives everything meaning. So one of the things that as a family business we really try to create and do is to create what's called a constitution, family constitution. And this is really the foundation of how family businesses operate. So for us, it includes things like forming trusts which have ownership of our shares in the family business. And we have other rules. For example, before a family member can enter the family business, they must graduate from college, work outside for at least 2 years. We need to start from the bottom. So even when I already had my MBA, I started as a management trainee for 1 year in D&L. And then no sidelines allowed. 100% of our focus has to be in the business. We also have a rule where we don't employ in-laws, or in-laws are outlawed. Not that we don't believe the in-laws will not have any contribution. It's really just to separate the personal issues from the business issues. And then we created the family office as well. So our vision for the future, you can imagine it's quite consistent with how most businesses see themselves. Things like targeting growth, the talent in the company, and of course, everyone working together, planning for the future. So, why would a business go public? Why would our family business consider going public? So Lorraine talked about that 3-generation curse, which is something our family is very aware of, and we would also want to avoid. So the idea is that if you are able to improve governance in the business, hopefully you can implement a lot of things which will avoid this 3-generation curse. So these are there are a lot of studies that have been done about succession in family businesses. And as you can see, so this is one of the sources that talks about succession. So it's less than 5% of family businesses that survive to the 4th generation. So our business and Lorraine's business, and I think most of the panelists today, we're still in the 2nd generation. But you can see the odds of us surviving really are not, we're going against the odds. So there's really a strong need to professionalize the family business. So in our case, what we did, we established a holding company structure. We also have a lot of people who work with us now, who were with multinational companies and other large corporations, so that we could jumpstart how we learn and how we adapt best practices. We implemented ISO 9000 certification and other important standards, and we also brought on board very credible auditor to start auditing our books before we even did our IPO. And of course, having the IPO there's an automatic requirement to improve governance, and you also need independent directors on your board. So on the board is a list of some of the traditional reasons why companies do an IPO. So I won't go through all of them, but I would say we are mostly familiar with these reasons. But for us, one big key factor is being a listed company really gives us more options. There are also non-traditional reasons for doing IPO, which we felt very strongly about. So as a business owner, for many business owners, actually, it's not about money. It's not about your income. A lot of it is actually keeping score, making things better than what you had before. So having a listed company with a very visible share price it provides an easy way to, again, keep track of a metric that you can improve. There's also estate planning. So I would say, well, especially in our market here in the Philippines, the transfer of shares from one generation to the next, if the company is listed, is a relatively low tax event, unlike in most other countries. But that is one huge reason why an IPO, especially in the Philippines, makes sense. For us, we also saw the IPO as an opportunity to create that sense of pride that our employees have with the company. So we're not a consumer brand company. We don't have products we don't have brands that our people can rally around. So it made it a little harder for us to continue to motivate our people or to inspire them. Having that listed company just made it a lot easier. Of course, there's financial discipline. My dad told me the story before where at the end of his golf game, he would go to his locker, and the guy whose locker was next to his would make kamusta and greet him about share price. So just that, even if you're on the golf course, even if you're out of the office, you are reminded, about work and about how you need to be really good in the business. And this is something Lorraine also mentioned earlier, the legacy for the founders. That's something that an IPO does. So all of these are additional competitive advantages that we can get simply by being a listed company. Now, there are a lot of reasons why family businesses or business owners decide not to do an IPO. And here I've listed a couple. And I've also mentioned here reasons why these disadvantages don't necessarily apply. So first, a lot of people are afraid or concerned about the loss of privacy. So suddenly, the names of the owners, how much they own, what the company does, the revenue, income are public information. But the reality is, in the world of social media, in the world of easy access, you can now easily download income statements from various websites. It doesn't really apply anymore. The other thing is, sure, as a listed company, you have to produce annual reports, but in the Philippines, I believe less than 2-3% of Filipinos have stockbroker accounts, and out of that, maybe less than 10% would even bother to read annual reports. So that added exposure of family members, how the business operates, it's not necessarily as widespread. So that applies as well to information about the business. Yes, you do have to disclose more, but you can limit what you talk about to just the non-confidential information. Also, financial information is just much easier to obtain today. There are concerns about losing that leverage you have with your customers and suppliers, but again, because many people already know how well your business is doing, it's not really a secret anymore. Number 4, an IPO is really not that expensive. Sure, you do have to pay a lot to your various underwriters, lawyers, and so on. But if you look at what you achieve at the end of it, that small investment does reap a huge benefit. Number 5, being a listed company might be a distraction to the owners and to the executives. Sure, you have to do more things that you weren't doing before, like investor relations and so on. But most of this is really short-term during the IPO period. Number 6, future growth pressure. So some people see this as a negative. When you're listed, you are under the radar. Lorraine called it being in a glass house. But at the end of the day, isn't this pressure, at the end of the day, good for you? It will force you to continue to be better, to continue to grow. So that's not necessarily a disadvantage. 7, trading restrictions. You can't trade your shares all the time. There are blackout periods, but that's fine. There are many other periods where you can trade. You just need to disclose your trades. Number 8, that dilution of control. So our company float is about 31%. So the family still owns 69%. We have given up a big chunk of ownership in the company, but we still have absolute majority, significant control over the company. So no real loss of control at all. Sorry, it's a long list, but I'm almost done. Transparency and taxation. So when you're listed, you are forced to be honest. You have to pay all your taxes. I don't see this as a disadvantage because the various authorities like the BIR are getting much better at tracking what you're really making. So might as well pay everything and be legit, right? Number 10, selling shares for a lower price than their perceived worth. And this is something we see a lot. Many businesses, the owners have a desired value for their company, but the market may not share or agree with that desired value. But at the end of the day, who's right? The owner or the financial markets? So at the end of the day, the best price is where the buyers and the sellers meet, right? That's what we learned in business school. So it's one way to find out what is that business truly worth. Number 11, I hear this a lot. I don't need the money. Sure, you may have a lot of cash either in your bank account or in the company's bank account. But think about this. What if your number 1 competitor suddenly had 1 billion pesos, 10 billion pesos, $1 billion because they did their IPO or they got funding and they're going to spend against you? How would you react? Would you be able to react well? So if you were listed and you had that cash, would it make you more competitive? So that's something I believe we're thinking about. So our first IPO was in the year 2000, a company called Coracle. Second one was in 2006. So when we listed cameras, it was actually a backdoor listing. We used Coracle as the listing vehicle, we changed the name to Chemres. And that was done in 2006. And then in 2012, we did the IPO of D&L. And in 2014, we bought back the outside shareholders of, so D&L owned part of Chemres initially. We bought back the remaining shareholders in 2014 via tender offer. So Chemres was delisted after. So 6 years after the IPO, our market cap has gone up from 15 billion pesos. It's now 72 billion pesos. In terms of the biggest companies by market cap in the Philippines, we're now ranked 45. And our foreign ownership is at roughly 20%. So what did we do right? So there are a few things that helped us. First, we had a lot of practice because D&L was actually our third time to list. So we kind of knew already, what we could focus on, what we could set aside. We were lucky, we have a growing business in the right space. The Philippines is still very much a young economy, but growing fast. So, right place, right time. We had a public float that was large enough. When we floated D&L, the float was 34.5%. We left money on the table. Our IPO price was at a reasonable 11 times PE. And that was when the market was trading at, I believe, 14, 15 times PE. We are actively engaged with investors. We're regularly joining roadshows and so on. We do a lot to treat minority shareholders fairly, and we have owners who are really on board with the whole thing. So other things that we do to improve governance and transparency. So as you can see on this slide, we have a lot of touch points with our investors, whether it's through conferences or meetings, various countries. This shows you that our foreign ownership has been going up over time. Even this year, you'll see that foreign ownership has gone up. It's now at almost 20%. And then similar to Wilcon, out of 7 directors, 4 of our directors are independent. This is something that we only achieved starting last year. It's something that we definitely will continue. Actually, one of my goals is eventually, we will even have more independent directors on our board. That's something that I personally would like to do. Even across our management team. So normally in a family business, you would have senior people in management. We do have a lot of senior people in management, but 2 of our most senior positions, our COO and CFO, are actually non-family members. So that's something we have extended to our executives as well. These are some of the awards we have won as a company over the years. Okay, so was the IPO worth it? Financially, definitely. You can see from the increase in market cap, share price, the value. So our family's largest asset is D&L, and the value has increased tremendously. It's also helped us achieve a low cost of debt. I believe our average cost of debt right now is still roughly at 4%. So that's, again, because our banks really trust that we have transparent financials. They see the growth. So they end up fighting over our business. That's why we can negotiate really good rates. And we also have that, we always have that option. Any listed company has that option to sell more shares in the future to finance further growth. So we have a lot of flexibility. From a strategic perspective, yes, IPO made sense. It gives us currency to do things like acquisitions. If one day the family decides it wants to exit, that can be done easier also when the business is listed. And from a family business perspective, definitely yes, the IPO made a lot of sense. So we were able to achieve with the IPO a lot of things so a lot of the advantages I talked about, definitely we did achieve them. So is an IPO for you? So the first priority, of course, is in your business, the owners have to all be in agreement. This is what you need to do. And the owners need to be on top of the process as well. You need to do this when that IPO window is open. It's not always open. And it involves a lot of people. You have to have that minimum float of 20%. And you also have to consider what your competition is doing. If you decide to do an IPO, you do need that underwriter. Their role is crucial. So work with someone you know or that you can trust and have that transparency with all of your information. You have to start that from even today because that is where you are headed towards when you are a listed company. And you have to be willing to meet with investors who have all kinds of questions about their company, about their direction, their vision, and so forth. I would also highly encourage your employees to become shareholders. So I think it's something that Wilcon did as well. We invited all of our employees to participate in the IPO. And if the IPO timing isn't right, just prepare. Eventually that time will come. So today's take-home value. If you do decide to do an IPO, I'd be happy to meet with you and to give you free advice, no charge. There's no limit, there's no expiry to this offer, but no guarantee that your share price will go up. Thank you very much.
My apologies. At the start of the presentations of our guest speakers, I should have emphasized that we should have our cell phones put in silent mode, although I didn't hear any ringing, but also not to eat while a keynote speaker is speaking, and I didn't see anyone eating. So thank you for that. Our third speaker